hi, hello, welcome back to Emily A to Z. My name is Emily and today it's the start of Summerween. And full disclosure, I've already filmed this once and I figured out that a setting got changed on my camera and so it was filming in like 2 times slowed down speed and without sound. So that's so much fun. A lot of my footage for the last little bit had been in those fun settings. So yay! Happy Summerween, happy July. But let's get into it. I now have to catch up because all of my other footage isn't available for use. Let's go over my TBR. I am missing a book. It should be on its way to me very soon. First and foremost, Summerween this year. It's like a carnival, spooky carnival. I love it so much. I'm going to do this a little bit so I can pop up graphics. But like, I'm really excited, and of course we always have to read a book in the dark. I have this novella, What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. For a horror or thriller book, I have The Killing Lessons by Saul Black. Apparently this is the first in a trilogy. I did not know that, but here we are. To read a book written by a new to me author, I have If the Dead Belong Here by Carson Faust. I have never read this. Read a book with pink on the cover. I have The Night Guest by Hilda Knutsdotter, and this is translated by Mary Robinette Cowell. And then for a book under 250 pages, it is on its way to me. I'm going to be reading the short story, The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. But of course there's also a bingo board, and along with all of the reading prompts out there, there's also listen to a spooky playlist, watch a horror movie, bake a treat, and make a fun drink. Now, because I have lost some days and some footage, I am just going to fill you in on what has happened the last couple days for me, because I have finished a book. I'm halfway through when I will probably finish it. Hopefully tonight, actually. I blazed through like half of it yesterday. I've baked a treat. So like, let's jump in with some info. All right, so I started with If the Dead Belong Here by Carson Faust, and this is hard to explain. I will be straight up and say I gave this a 2. I finished it this morning and I just am not impressed. We are following a family, and this is like a generational saga that is set across 2 timelines. The majority of the timeline is set in 1996, where a 6-year-old girl named Laurel goes missing in the middle of the night and is just gone suddenly without a trace. And we are kind of in the perspective of her older sister, who is 15, 16, Nadine, who is like trying to figure out what happened to her, but her family is very dysfunctional, right? Dad is out of the picture because he was an abusive piece of shit. Mom is an alcoholic and is a not functioning one and is drunk all the time. Her great aunt Rose lives with them to basically take care of these girls because their mother can't. Or at least her mother was doing better because they were all together, and then Laurel goes missing and it sends her mom like down this alcoholic spiral again. And this whole novel is her trying to figure out what happened to her sister and dealing with her feelings of like rage and impotence at like not being able to find her sister and not being able to help, and her mom, like in her opinion, seemingly doing nothing to help find her sister. And then we get this secondary like storyline of the 70s in South Carolina. I should also say that this starts in Wisconsin. But we also get other timelines in South Carolina following basically Nadine's ancestors. There is a family tree at the beginning of the book, which I did find very helpful, because they don't explain these connections very well in the novel. So having the family tree to like refer back to is incredibly helpful. And I listened to the audiobook, but I did get a physical copy and was like, okay, and was able to like match up who these people were. I could figure it out based off context clues, but it is not clear. So that really helped. I'm giving this a 2 because I found myself struggling to care about these characters. There is a lot of exploration of generational trauma in here because our main characters are Native American. And so there is a lot of this just trauma from their personal life experiences from way back when in the 1800s, early 1900s, of being like prejudiced and discriminated and maltreated by just white people in general, all the way down to more individual levels within the family, the nuclear family. So very broad general trauma all the way, and then it gets more and more specific as the generations go by, right? Less generalized prejudice and more internalized prejudice and internalized discrimination and abuse that these people face, and how cycles of abuse and cycles of trauma do tend to repeat in families and in generations. And that is so sad. Yes, it's well portrayed in this, and at the same time I was going, can these people catch a break? But also, this is portrayed as a ghost story. Like, the whole thing is the ghosts of the past collide, steeped in indigenous folklore, right? All of this stuff. The folklore and the like ghosty part of this doesn't come in until halfway through the novel. The first half is all just this interpersonal drama and trauma, and it is so heavy and it is so slow and it weighs the narrative down. I wish that the introduction of the folklore, and they discuss these, my brain is saying cryptid, it's not a cryptid, but this like fae-like creature, they're called little people. They introduce them very early, but then like don't talk about them again until like halfway through the book. And it just was like, if that was more interwoven through the narrative throughout, I think I would have been more drawn to it. As it stands, it was half of a family drama and then the second half through all of this folklore at you, and it was just like too much too late kind of thing. So 2 stars from me. My book for what I'm reading at night is this novella, What Moves the Dead. This is the first book in the Sworn Soldier trilogy. I don't know if there's going to be any more. I know that the third one came out in 2025, so I don't actually know if there's going to be a fourth. And this is a retelling of The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe. We are following Alex, who is a retired soldier. They get a letter from their friend Madeline saying like, please come. My brother thinks I'm dying, please come. Alex is like, sure, I'll be there. But then once they get to the castle, it's like there's more going on. There's more than meets the eye. Both Madeline and her brother, what's the brother's name? Roderick. Both Madeline and Roderick are like deathly ill and pale, and there's something going on. And of course, Alex is gonna have to figure out what's going on. I only got like 20 pages in when I first started it because I'm only reading it when it's dark outside, and with it being summer, it gets dark really late. But I'm liking it so far. I'm a huge fan of Edgar Allan Poe. I know I've like read or I've consumed The Fall of the House of Usher, but I've got my big book of the collected tales and poems of Edgar Allan Poe, so I think I will read The Fall of the House of Usher and Sworn Soldier and just kind of really immerse myself in that retelling, which is very exciting. And then I have started my thriller. I kind of mixed it up this year. This is The Killing Lessons by Saul Black, which I learned Saul Black is a pen name for a different author. I think it's in here because it's under the copyright page. Saul Black is the pen name for Glenn Duncan. I don't know, I picked this randomly off the shelves, and I just got very lucky that this actually is the first book in this trilogy about a female homicide detective named Valerie Hart, and that is what the series is called. This is fast. I am already halfway through, and I started it yesterday and got halfway through it yesterday. I am blazing through this. They are very short chapters, lots of very fast couple page chapters, which is always great when you're in like a thriller, in my opinion, because if you're sucked into the narrative and you're like flipping those pages, it's very satisfying to like reach the end of the chapter and then like directly get to the next one. We're bouncing around in narratives. So the book opens at a farmhouse in this little rural isolated area of Colorado. It is a single mom with her 2 children, and she's home alone with them when these 2 intruders come in and unfortunately they do attack and murder her and one of her children. The other child manages to escape and flees. And then it cuts back to San Francisco in California, where this detective is trying to solve a series of murders where women are being found dead, sometimes harmed in certain ways before they are murdered, but all of them are murdered, and then something is put into their bodies in some way, and she knows they're connected, and she's trying to solve this crime. So we are getting perspectives from like the victim, the survivor, the detective, and also there are POVs from the killers as well. There is an underlying like story besides just solving the crime. It's not just a police procedural. Valerie is not just this clean-cut detective. She has a past, and she has regrets and mistakes, and she is imperfect. She also struggles with alcohol use and dealing with the burdens of these crimes. I did get really annoyed at first because it went on and on and on about how she ruined love and she broke her person's heart and the death of love, the death of love. And I was like, oh my God, I get it. That was very frustrating. And I don't like that it kind of reduced her to just being like, she's this hollow shell because she broke up with someone that she loved. I'm in it for the story. I will say though, big trigger warnings for violence, especially violence against women. There is death of a child. There is also mentions of horrific abuse of children and body horror, body mutilation, and just a lot of violence and abuse and rape does happen in this, and it can be kind of intense at times. So if you are sensitive to that, just know that that content is in here. It is pretty relevant to what is happening because of, I think, where these killers are going and the way their brains think. It is part of it. It is a sexual crime. It is a violent crime against women. So be aware. Also, I did bake a treat. I will put in a picture. I made of my own brain power, thanks. I took a spice cake mix, and instead of making a cake, I made them into cookies, let them cool, and then got cream cheese filling and made little like sandwiches out of the spice cake cookies with cream cheese filling in the middle. And my boys love them. They are obsessed with them, and they are very good, so I can see myself needing to make those again soon. And it's just a way to have kind of that like almost spooky fall flavor of like the spice cake, but make it very summery with like the cheesecake and portable little sandwiches. So they're very good. But I want to go read. We'll see what else I get up to. Hello, update time. And I just lost all of my light. What just happened? It's fine. I have finished 2 more books. Let's chat about them. So first I finished The Killing Lessons. I gave this a 3.5. Kindy wants to go out. She can wait just a little bit. She's fine. She's just been out, but it's very warm, so I can't just let her go be a baked potato as much as she wants, or she'll be a burnt potato. Anyways, so again, The Killing Lessons kicks off a trilogy of books following Detective Valerie Hart, who is struggling in this book. She is starting to struggle with alcohol use. She's this burned out, but not quite burned out detective. She's on the verge of becoming burned out. And she has been on this serial killer case for a long time. And when this book starts, there's already been a series of like 7 murders. So we are being dropped right into the middle of this already like investigation. So she is already frustrated and desperate and angry because these bodies keep popping up. And this synopsis here, where it's like 2 strangers show up at Rowena's Colorado farmhouse, and then like the little girl, there was a survivor, the daughter who now holds the keys to the killings, injured, half frozen, terrified. Nell has only one place to go, and that place could be even more dangerous than what she's running from. This whole synopsis is only the first like quarter of the book. There's so much more that happens past that, that this is not an accurate representation. And also that whole last paragraph about Nell going somewhere that could be even more dangerous is bullshit. That is the farthest thing that happens. It's not a spoiler, so I'm going to share it. Nell does run away from, she manages to survive. Her mom and her brother don't. And she does get injured. It's cold. She is found and taken in by this elderly old man who is like moved into this cabin that's like the closest cabin to them and is isolated as well. And he like nurses her back to health and keeps her safe. And they make it sound as if she ends up in this place, that place could be even more dangerous. That like she ends up in the clutches of like another serial killer or like a child predator. And that is not at all. This man who finds her is arguably one of the best characters in this entire book. He's this sweet like widower. He was a famous author and he lost his wife and he moves out. He like bought this rundown cabin in the woods to just like basically figure out if he was going to try and join his dead wife or if he was going to keep trying to live. And then this girl ends up on his porch and he's like, well, I guess I'm taking care of her. And he's just the nicest man. Like, he is the best character out of everyone. It gets a 3.5 because I read the first half of this book in one day. Like, it sucked me in. It was really, really engaging. I liked what it was doing. And then the second half just started to feel so slow. The second half drug on and on and on. And I would find myself kind of like flipping ahead and like kind of skimming real quick, and I'd flip ahead and skim, and then I'd go back to what was happening. And if I catch myself doing that, you're taking too long to get to the point, is kind of what it felt like. I definitely think we could have trimmed 50 to 100 pages out of some of this, and we would have still gotten the narrative that they were trying to tell, but more concisely. Because the first part, yeah, it's like boom, 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 boom. And then it just is like, okay. And we're jumping back and forth from our detective to the victims, to the killers, to the victims, to the killers, to the detective. And you're jumping all over the place, and that's totally fine. But it's like we would learn something with our detective, jump to the killers, and when we jumped back to our detective, we basically learned the same information again. And we would learn like the same information in different chapters again and again and again, and it didn't add anything to the story. It didn't give us any new perspective. We just got the same information. I wish we had gotten more background on the serial killer character. He's such an integral part of the story. He has his own POV chapters, but we really don't delve into his background at all. I wish his motives and his motivations for what he was doing was more clear. It's not. You get an idea of why he's doing what he's doing, but it's definitely just this like portrayal of the abused child who then becomes a killer. Like the hurt people kind of idea, where he had a rough childhood and so then he becomes a serial killer. And I understand that happens. I just didn't like that there were times when it almost felt like the author wanted us to pity him, and I will never do that. Pity a man? No. Pity a male serial killer? Absolutely not. Like, that's not gonna happen. So I just struggled. It just went on too long. Otherwise, I did enjoy it, and I am intrigued to pick up the second book in this series. This as a standalone, perfectly fine. You could read this and be content with this. I am intrigued to see what he does with our detective. I don't believe there's a continuation of like this particular serial killer. She gets the bad guy in the end. Woohoo. So like, I don't think there's a continuation in this particular storyline, but I am intrigued to see what this author does with Valerie and her storyline. Even though I also got really fed up with some of her whole like, I'm sad and angry and burnt out because I wrecked my own relationship and so love is dead. I'm like, okay, cool. Can we let go? I also didn't like that trope of like, she's this heartbroken detective. Okay, women can be badasses without depending on a man. So I will consider reading the second book, but if I feel that it is also kind of fitting into some of those tropes, or like that Valerie's whole persona as a cop is dependent on her relationship with a fellow cop, I will then nix the situation. I liked his writing though. I did enjoy the writing. I just didn't like certain things. And then I finished The Night Guest. I listened to this as an audiobook in one day. Easy peasy. It's only like a 3-hour audiobook. I also listen at like 1.75 speed minimum. So this is set in Iceland. This was actually originally written in 2021, but didn't get translated until 2024. Translated, and the audiobook narrator is this translator. So that was cool. Mary Robinette Cowell. And this is a woman who is just exhausted all the time, and she can't get any straight answers as to why. She goes to the doctor and they kind of dismiss her, or they're like, we want you to see a psychologist or a psychiatrist. And she gets really annoyed, and finally she buys like a smartwatch and wears it and sees that she is walking thousands of steps a night, waking up with these mysterious bruises, and that's why she gets so tired all the time. And then she starts like pulling up the maps of her watch and sees that she keeps going to the same place every single night, kind of thing. And then weird stuff starts happening in her personal life as well. Like it starts to morph and transform, and things get weird in her personal life and around her neighborhood, and she's worried that she is becoming potentially violent or is doing something shady, but she doesn't know and she can't remember. I wake up with blood on my knee. The blood is clotted and brown, and it is not mine. Like, so things start getting kind of weird. Honestly, they stay weird. I gave this a 3. If you want your fun little weird sci-fi horror novella, paranormal, supernatural novellas to have a satisfying ending, this is not the book for you. This does not have a satisfying, everything gets tied up with a nice little ribbon ending where it's all explained to you. It is not. We get kind of this big reveal. There's a lot of buildup. It's like this. There's like a lot of buildup for very little payoff. There's so much of just her wondering what's happening to her and being in denial about what's happening to her and trying to get an answer from a doctor, and then being in denial about what the doctors have said and refusing to go see a psychologist and doing this and doing that and avoiding everything until eventually she stops avoiding it to try and confront things. And then it all hits the fan very rapidly, very, very quickly, and then the book ends. And it is not a satisfying or conclusive, maybe I shouldn't say satisfying. It's not that it's not satisfying. Some people would find the ending satisfying, but it is not a clear-cut story. The ending is ambiguous. It is left for interpretation. I definitely looked on like Reddit for this book and Goodreads and just kind of saw what other people were saying about it and how they interpreted the ending, because I do think there are multiple ways that you could interpret how this book is written, what the ending means, what the whole story actually means, and what the author is trying to tell you. And I gave it a 3. It just was a little weird for me, and it's like, nothing I don't hate it, but there was just a few things where I was like, the ending was not satisfying to me. I wanted it to go, if it was gonna do what it did, like if it's gonna go down that weird route, I wanted it to go even more so down that weird route. The route that it took, I wanted it to go even more. I wanted you to dive right in and take us all the way. And I don't feel like it did. I feel like it kind of brought us to the edge and then just kind of went, there you go. I am making progress on What Moves the Dead. I am about halfway through. I'm only reading this one at night, so that's why. And then I just got my copy of The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. This is like 150 pages because whilst it has the short story in it, it also includes a whole introduction to the short story and discussion questions, and then it also has like essays that other people have written about the yellow wallpaper. So this whole thing is actually kind of like a case study. So you get the story and then you can read some essays that other authors or professionals have written analyzing the text, which I think is pretty cool. Time to get reading for a little bit. I've got a little bit of time to read before I have to go meet my husband for a date night. And that's really exciting. So I'm gonna do that. And whilst it is daylight time, I'm gonna work on the yellow wallpaper. So it is actually Sunday when I'm filming this, but Summerween is over. It ended Friday, Thursday, Friday. I don't remember, the days are all blurring together for me, but Summerween is over, and unfortunately I did not read all of the books that I wanted to read. I read basically all but one. So I got the yellow wallpaper from my library basically right before Summerween ended, and instead of trying to like cram it in, I've decided I'm gonna hold on to it, and it's gonna go into the vlog that I'm gonna film right after this and that I'm excited for. But I did finish What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. This is the first book in the Sworn Soldier trilogy. I've mentioned that so many times. I don't have to keep mentioning it, and I gave this a 4. This is a fun, fast novella. I really enjoyed the gender-bending twist of the Fall of the House of Usher story by Edgar Allan Poe. In this one, Alex Easton is a rather non-binary character, born female, but has enlisted in the military as a sworn soldier, and in their language and in their culture, once you join the military as a sworn soldier, you get a whole new set of pronouns, and they use those pronouns for themselves, which kind of acts as like a they for us in our language. I really liked that little bit of culture and digging into the character and adding depth where there really isn't depth in the Fall of the House of Usher. This focused on Easton and who Easton is as a person and their relationship to Maddie and Roderick and the complicated relationship between Maddie and Roderick themselves as siblings. But it was very enjoyable. I really loved Angus in this story. Angus is Alex's like steward or valet. I really love Angus, and I love Miss Potter in here. Miss Potter is a British lady who is obsessed with mushrooms, and she's quite awesome. I really liked those two characters. Even though they are like secondary or even tertiary characters, I really liked them overall. They were fun. And so yeah, 4, I will definitely be picking up the next book in this trilogy. And if there's more and I enjoy it, I probably will continue. I did read 4 books. I read If the Dead Belong Here by Carson Faust, The Killing Lessons by Saul Black, The Night Guest by Hildur Knutsdottir, translated by Mary Robinette Cowell, and What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. And so, all in all, I did get a bingo, because I'm going to count this one as my read at night / under 250 pages. And so I did basically complete all of the tasks, and I got a bingo, plus I did bake those fun treats, which were delicious, and I will have to make them again soon. I did not make a milkshake, and that's okay. That wraps up Summerween. I know this was kind of a weird video. I was really upset that I lost some footage, and I'll talk about that later, but like, I'm back with Summerween, and I already am jumping right into my next vlog, so I'm gonna go. Thank you so much for watching. I'm so glad you're here. Be easy with your hearts.